Today's show is brought to you by official Skunk2 merch.
And then forget about it. It's game over from there, and now it's like the focus.
Half a second ahead at that point?
Half a second ahead. Now the focus was on, and again, even from the big companies, on chasing that number and not on developing stuff to get all motor back where it needs to be. So a year after that, 2 years after that, really start pushing the M1 thing. They go fast on the 99. And, at the time, we're all in, everyone's all sort of the same clique.
You can't sit with us!
We had this whole big and push in. I said, you know what? Let's help them out. Let's give M1 that push. Yeah, if the industry sees me going back to M1, maybe that'll motivate others to come back. And I didn't give two shits about M1. I just want to see how the hell, now my point is, how do I go 8.5? How do I go 8.1? And we put the M1 setup in the car. And the thought was, hey, these nitro guys are dumb. Jamie's too dumb. He's not going to be able to figure out how to go fast on M1. He's all driven by the feel. Put M1 in it first time. I think at the time the record was for 99, 939. First pass car goes 933. So, of course, the thought is he's got to be on field. He's not on M1.
Yeah.
So we go to the H day. Same thing. Car goes fast. It qualifies number one. And then it sort of intrigued the thought. Now there was a new spark and interest in, damn, how can we go a bit faster now on M1? What are some of the factors that are needed, this chase for VE? What are some of the small things that we can do to really push? Now it's not tipping the can. Now I really have to think small nuts and bolts to go fast. And we just kept getting faster and faster and faster and faster. And eventually, ended up being the top of the class, or somewhat at the top of the class. Well, what I learned is, as you start getting faster,
people like you less.
Like you less. And that includes people in your own circle.
I'm just kidding you, man. I don't want to win. I'll just bury it down inside.
So, energy's changed. I realized I wasn't getting the latest and the greatest. As my curiosities grew, I realized that, only certain individuals can actually compete and be friends. And slowly realized that my allies were no longer my allies, and I sort of had to form my own circle. And being that I'm not an engine guy, there's only but so much that I can do in tuning. So, one day I remember sending one of the accomplishments. I forgot what I did. We went fast on M1 somewhere, and I sent it to Dave. It was just a random day. Just sent it over to you. I said to you.
Oh, to me? Really?
And I'm like, maybe, and I still don't know who Dave is.
That's Dave.
I know of him, and now I learned more about him, but I'm like, maybe he's not even going to open his message.
Oh, did I reply to you?
You replied, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
So he opens the message, and he looks at it, and
why are you running that cow?
Well, the first thing he said is, what fuel? First thing he asked is, what fuel? It's an M1. And I think that's probably what got your attention.
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
And it's trickled down into what cam, what are you running? And I told him what I was running, and he's like, why are you running that? And it sort of trickled on to these conversations for months on end, that's sharing information on what I was given and what I was fed as the Bible.
Yeah.
And slowly debunking and realizing what I thought and what I held to be true is really not true. And
there's the Bible.
Oh, sorry. So, here we are today with, like I said, that conversation stream in itself is just, you could write a book on that. It's
it could be a script for this whole interview. I think we've covered more in this conversation, down into the details.
For sure.
Now.
Sure. We're in that it's more Dave throwing small things out to challenge the thinking. And I appreciate that, where it's not, here's the answer. It's here's where you should be thinking for the answer.
Wax on, wax off. Don't forget to breathe. Very important.
And I think, that leads us into today, where it's like now, I don't feel, restricted by.
Yeah, you're gonna find a new gear. Sure, find a whole new gear. Like, just mentally thinking about this, you're just in the different.
Possibilities are endless now. Like where I thought we were at the end all before with all motor, it's like realize like we're not at the end all. We're not at the beginning, but we're surely not at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Not even
Closer to the end. There's not many things you can do left of the Gen 1 stuff.
Sure, no, Gen 1, no. But just forward thinking on and even also just the engine, just technology in itself. I mean, there's just so much out there that we're just not even thinking. Half the white papers you send me, it's like, this been out there for 10 years.
Since 2015.
Yeah. And it's like groundbreaking today. Well, groundbreaking as it applies to the Honda model.
Only because you read it today. Self-interest and ego is like a monster when you're trying to climb this mountain. With the TLRCs, it's basically BMF profiles. It's BMF TLRC. Bad motherfucker in low roller cams.
Ba 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 na na ba 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 na 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 ba 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 na na.
It's like stale information. Like, it's funny. It's the one man's trash is another man's treasure. It's like driving, everything is like part of it, right? But yeah, I mean, look, I had no interest in coming back to do the case stuff. No interest, just because of maybe the whole environment. It's like I just don't want to have to punch down. But just being able to do it just for the pure science experiment of it, right? Because I'm not necessarily doing it so Jamie can be number one. I'm doing it because I need to use this as a platform to learn other
Mm-hmm.
And it just happens to be that your race program and then, our development program is just going to be the beneficiary of all this effort, right? I mean, you've done a lot with the tuning side. I'm sure the gains in that, there's still some, but
Still small.
they're marginal. Like, you've got the low-hanging fruit covered from the whole tuning side. Now we're back to the mechanical efficiency of things, But ultimately, it's a combination. Like, if it's M1, then we're taking the chemical potential energy out of it, the equation, but there's still so many other things to look at,
Even as it applies just to M1, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
without going into detail, some of the things we're testing on the engine dyno now. I mean,
Yeah.
if nothing else, it sort of cures that curiosity that we have, knowing that's that other technology exists.
Yeah, I mean, we've tested a lot of that doesn't work to know what does work. And if there's, like, I don't want this to just be like a session.
I'm gonna have BF.
Wait, hey, what's a BF?
She's gonna have a fit.
Right? It's sort of like, how are we going to motivate other people to raise their game? I mean, you're covering your perspective of like, don't believe everybody out there, because self-interest and ego is like a monster when you're trying to climb this mountain. But dig a little deeper, dig a little bit closer to the science as opposed to what your buddy told you, and then you got to test. It's like, for example, good guy, good loyal guy. He's is building the 100 race engine. He's not building anything.
Just won an event this past weekend on that BMO.
Oh, did he? He's not on the kill everything, but he is definitely loyal. He's consistent. And so, like, working with those guys, people don't believe, like, that he's running. They don't believe it. They just don't want to believe it. Like, when he had a manifold on there, and we put an ultra manifold with the thing on there, he made like 100 more horsepower, 150 more horsepower, the mid-range where you want it. you know? And it seemed like the TLRC cams. I gave the TLRC cams to a long time ago, and they tested it, and they found like, so they were stuck between compressor housings. Like, we don't have enough power to turn the big one. And then the little one has got too much restriction in it. And as soon as he switched over to cam, they turned the big one, no problem. And I told him, it's like, look, your issue isn't going to be the cam. The issue is going to be your other holding up when you try to spin it to 12,000 RPM. What's he do? He breaks an oil pump and he throws the crank pulley off of the thing, but he made 150 more horsepower. He picked up like, I forgot how many mile an hour in the 8th mile. He knows it works. But this is one of those things, it's like, didn't want to put any of the customers on it because he didn't want to have to retune all their cars. That's not good. That's fucking lazy as
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
You know, so hopefully they figure it out. Otherwise, anybody, like, I'm just waiting for everybody to realize, like, look, the TLRCs, it's basically BMF profiles. It's BMF TLRC. Bad motherfucking twin lobe roller cams.
Which one is it? It's the one that says bad motherfucker.
That's what it is. They'll figure it out. And they're going to see, like, what person at that point doesn't want an extra 100, 150 horsepower?
I think they're all chasing.
I look at the cam says. I would argue with that. I think there's probably still people going to or still going to whatever. Like, look, when you can turn the knob, it doesn't matter if you turn a little bit more, but when the knob's at max.
If you can see, the numbers all go to 11.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
All you got is volumetric efficiency until the next turbo comes out, right? So it's sad because people aren't actually as curious and scientific as they should be in chasing the performance. They're always waiting for somebody else to do it to validate it so they can chase the performance. Like, not chase performance, they're copying the performance. You know, they need, there's nobody out there that creates the recipe. They're all just looking up the recipe and you copy the recipe, you know, and then like change a brand and that's their new variation on the recipe. Yeah. Anyways. Go lunch.
That concludes the first season of the Smoke Show. We hope you enjoyed it, but we're not done yet. Leave a comment with what you'd like to see next, and be sure to subscribe to the Skunk2 YouTube channel. And while you're waiting for the next episode, be sure to pick up some Skunk2 merchandise or some Go Fast parts. We're just getting started.